Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. As always, tons to talk about around the NBA, but today is a special day. We've got a guest on. It's Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report. Eric, thanks so much for joining us. Happy to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always enjoy what you guys do, and happy to be a part of it.
Keith, we've got a ton of topics to bounce off of each other and off of Eric. Why don't we dive right into it? And I want to get this one out of the way. Like
Hold on. We probably should put a fourth box up and just put like a Celtics logo to balance things. It feels like the force is a little out of balance here today, but that's all right. We can soldier through on this side.
We're trying to minimize the dark side. That's all.
Oh, okay. Hey,
I mean,
dark side still playing, my friend.
The only Lakers I have is, I guess let's get my finger, is also Knicks too, right? This is old school.
So you're like Trevor, because that's who Trevor switched his allegiance to for the remainder of the playoffs. He's all in on the Knicks.
I wouldn't say switched my allegiance to. I would just say I'm ridiculously in love with the Knicks and the way they play basketball, and a lot of it is Josh Hart too, and just watching him. You know, I am living vicariously through the Knicks right now.
All right, Trevor. Let's get. Speaking of Knicks, I think that's where we're going to start.
Knicks. This is what hurts my heart. My Josh Hart. Mitchell Robinson is out. He's out 6 to 8 weeks dealing with a stress reaction in his ankle. And this is just stop with the injuries. Turn them off already. The playoffs have already been hit too hard by injuries, and now the Knicks are losing Mitchell Robinson. Now, look, Isaiah Hartenstein has done a phenomenal job for them in the middle, no question, but they need depth. We know that Tom Thibodeau is going to play guys 52 minutes in a 48-minute game somehow, some way, but you still need any kind of depth. Knicks are getting very, very thin very quickly.
Yeah, they before this, with Randall obviously out, Bogdanovich out, Tibbs just not believing in a handful of guys at the end of the roster to put out there, they'd really cut the rotation down to about 7 guys. It had been Robinson and McBride coming off the bench. Occasionally, Precious Achiuwa was seeing spot minutes here and there, but that was more of an injury or foul trouble thing. My assumption is he will now eat up what he can of the Robinson minutes, and that'll be their 7 guys. But it's we talk about this all the time on the show. It's rarely the guy who gets hurt. It's what happens behind that. If another guy goes down, and now for the Knicks, we're down to 3-4 guys have gone down. And that's the part where it's starting to get really uncomfortable. Now, I saw some people saying, well, they didn't say season ending. All right, 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, 6 weeks from now is, we're talking the middle of June. So you're saying, all right, if they make the NBA Finals, maybe he's back. But if it's 8 weeks,
like Game 7,
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it's the reality is this is probably it for Mitchell Robinson this season, barring something really unexpected. So it's just what do I always say? Tibbs doesn't do next man up. He just does the rest of the guys play more. So we're just zooming in on that. It's going to be really tough for them to get through. They probably still get through the Pacers, but then another round, and then maybe if they can get through that round, the finals, eventually they're going to run out of gas.
Well, first of all, Josh Hart might just play center at this point, and I mean, Precious is obviously the guy you would think who will step into that. I like Hartenstein. Hartenstein is making his value rise when it comes to free agency.
Big time.
And I do like the Pacers. I think they're a lot of fun, and I'm not going to write them off. They're one of the best fourth quarter teams, if not the best fourth quarter team in scoring this year. So that last one was, I mean, it came down to the wire. I wouldn't just pencil in the Knicks to get through this. And I enjoy what the Pacers are doing. It's fun to watch Halliburton do his thing. We'll see. They're way past where they should be in terms of development. They've teams that were lousy last year aren't supposed to be going to the conference finals, but here they are. They have a shot. So curious to see what happens. Knicks are the Knicks. They're a lot of fun. They're tough. They're grimier than the Pacers, but I was impressed by how Indiana went toe to toe with that kind of Thibodeau style, Jalen Brunson style of painful basketball.
And without Halliburton having much of a game, right? He was pretty limited in game one. So game two, that's our only game tonight as we record this on Wednesday. That's it. That's the only game of the evening, because Nuggets Timberwolves was ahead of the other series. They started early. So we're going to get just Knicks Pacers in primetime, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's it. That's our only one for the night. So exciting that we'll be able to all lock in. If it's anything, let's do without the referee controversies at the end.
Please.
But if the game is played as well as it was in game one and it's that close, we all win for that as basketball fans. That'll be great.
So I'll tell you what, I think from watching game one in that series and seeing the Knicks with only a 1 advantage on the offensive glass, I think they won that battle. I want to say it was 8-7. They've got to fix that. They're not going to. I think they don't win the series unless they have a significant offensive rebound advantage. That's their superpower. Is they're so just insane when it comes to crashing the offensive glass. They bludgeon teams with that. And if the Pacers do the job they did in game one at stopping the Knicks from doing that, I think the Pacers actually take the series, especially assuming that, and I don't know what level of health he's at, but if Halliburton bounces back, I think the Knicks could be in trouble if they don't fix that specific category. Then they could very easily wind up losing this one. They almost lost game one, and we'll see how game two plays out tonight.
Yeah, really excited for it.
Let's jump over to the new media rights deal. Keith, I know you had a little bit more on this, and we can certainly get into what this might mean for the salary cap, how the new CBA comes into play, and all of that sort of stuff. So what is changing here with the NBA's media rights deal?
Yeah, so what we're starting to get now is it sounds like things are getting really close to the finish line with this. So we're getting more and more reporting coming out through the various sources. Some of these are coming from places like Sports Media Watch, Andrew Marchand of The Athletic. There's just a lot of stuff coming out, and it's all starting to put together what this total package looks like. And we're looking like they may be over $7 billion per season for this, and according to the article that I read on this, that is 170% increase over the $2.6 billion per year deals with ESPN and TNT alone. We know ESPN and Amazon are the two partners we know the NBA is going to go with them, whether it is NBC or whether it is going to be TNT, or maybe even both. There's still a chance that it could be both. And that's, I think, where this is coming in, but it's going to come in anywhere between, $7 and right around $7 billion. Back in 2021, there was a report that the NBA was looking for $7 to $8 billion. And then there was a report of, they may not get there. Well, it sounds like they're going to get there. And that's huge for the league. That shows the league is in a good place. There is some strength here. I think that is the media partners buying into and betting on the new crop of stars as the kind of aging stars move on and move out. So I think they're pretty good. So with that, so we're in a pretty good place here for those of us who want to see the league stay strong and all that. And this is huge for everybody in the teams.
Yeah, I think the world has shifted obviously from 2-3 decades ago, if not even a decade ago, in how people consume games. And I think some of the fears that it would hit the NBA in terms of money is that the networks wouldn't, because they're not getting the eyeballs, maybe they wouldn't put in the money. Well, it's just a different world. You have an Amazon, right? This is technically what you used to just order, like, whatever supplies around your house from, right? Yeah, books originally. Seriously. I remember my first, I had internet on my phone, and I was like in the very early days, and I'm like, oh, I ordered something and it delivered to my house. I was like crazy. That's Amazon, right? And so now their TV, great. They're putting in the money. So it should raise the cap. It won't raise it this coming season. We're not there yet. This isn't the new deal, but there's a cap on the cap in terms of growth. The most it can grow is 10% per year. So it'll be great for the players. They'll still get their money, but there'll be a limit on how that impacts the growth of the cap, which is how we build these teams immediately. I'm excited to see what happens. I root for Turner in the deal because Bleacher is our parent. Warner Brothers Discovery is our grandparent. So, but as me sitting here, I have no say in such things. But I would like it to stay in Turner and stay in the family. But I'll respect whatever decisions are made.
So what you're saying then, with there being a cap on the cap, is that we're not going to see a Kevin Durant to the Warriors situation all over again.
No. The cap smoothing idea was rejected at the time, and I understand why it was rejected. I understand the context. It was the wrong decision. Warriors fans won't agree, but it threw the NBA out of whack for some time, and it took about 4 or 5 years to unwind it. Not to unwind it, but just to outlast it. And the idea should be is that as long as the players get their share of the money, then it should be equitably done so that it's not just going to the players who happen to be free agents at that time. Some players weren't free agents. They didn't get paid. And that went to Joakim Noah, and we can go down the long list, the Mazdangs and the.
I was going to say, those are the two, right? Those are the two that everybody comes to, and it's
there were more. There's so many.
There were so many. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think it was Nate Duncan who coined the term the sour 16s, because that's what happened. It was all these deals in 2016 that were teams had to pay somebody because everyone then was very conscious of got to hit the floor, right? We've got to get to the salary floor. Outside of Philly was starting to operate slightly differently right around that time, and a couple other clubs. But Boston. Yeah, yep, yeah. So we're just in a spot now where it is we're gonna kind of push through, and I think what's important, a couple things, just so everybody knows. Eric mentioned this, but let's double down on it. This does not kick in for next year. So the offseason we've been talking about already here that starts in a little less than 2 months, this will not come in on that. That cap projection is purposely been far more, let's say, conservative right now. It's under 5%. I think the last one was about 4.7% or so. There's a lot of stuff. The NBA is dealing with a lot of fallout from the collapse of Diamond Sports and Bally Sports, that whole thing. There's been a lot of stuff there. There's been a few other things. We know so far it's been kind of a shortened playoffs. We only had 1 Game 7. We know that can have an impact on things if we don't have longer series. That's less games. That's less money into the pot, and that drives the cap to where it goes to. But a couple things with that, though. When this does kick in, we will not see, I believe it was it a $16 million spike at the time off of like a $58 million cap? It spiked way up there. And we won't see anything like that. We will not see a giant spike, because what the league did was they agreed to smoothing. So it's 10%. And then people say, well, what happens? What if it should have been 15%? That extra spills into the next year. And it spills into the next year, and it just keeps spilling over until we get caught up and everything is where it should be over a period of years. And I would assume if it was like taking 15 years to catch up, they'd probably at some point do some kind of addendum and say, all right, we got to maybe bump this to 15% from 10%, but they agreed to 10%. That's where it is. So we're not going to have this giant explosion of the cap with a bunch of deals and all this stuff. So, makes it a little easier. Makes it a little easier on people like us to track too, because then we're not kind of all over the place. So it just makes it a little easier to plan.
Right. And it's a 7-year CBA, so it'll resolve by then. And the players will get, if there's a shortfall, they're getting a check or electronic payment to the union, and that's getting distributed to the players. So it will be reconciled. The players will get their share. It just won't go to Mazdeng. Right. It'll go to everybody, which should have happened back then. And I understand the context of why it didn't happen. It's not really worth pointing fingers or blaming. It just, we had a recent changeover in who was the leadership of the union at the time, and trust hadn't been built up yet. Relationships hadn't been built up. And I just think over time they would have done smoothing back then. But here we are, and congrats to the Warriors for getting their titles for that. But I was saying the Celtics were one of the few teams that didn't just spend crazy money. They did like 1-year short deals with, was it Zeller or somebody like that? And it was, and then that put them in the position to, they got Hayward and then he got hurt, and that's
yeah. Horford was the first one, and then the next year, they got Hayward, traded for Kyrie, and
but they have the flexibility because one of the reasons why they've been on top of the East almost every year, whether they get to the finals or not, is in part because they were one of the few teams that was not short-sighted in how they handled that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Tyler had money to spend.
Yeah, Tyler Zeller got an $8 million contract out of it, but it was a 1 year, $8 million contract because it was, hey, we got to spend somewhere, so let's just keep them in the fold. And then they ultimately ended up trading.
Right. It's semi-similar to what Indiana did with Bruce Brown, and that led to them getting Pascal Siakam, which is why they're here where they are right now, giving Trevor's Knicks a hard time.
Trevor's Knicks, I love it.
Oh, so boy, we're gonna start a thing with that.
let's talk a little bit about the cap and the CBA. Trevor, are you good if we move into a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We can close. We'll talk about Jamal Murray and what happened there at the end of the show. Let's get into the CBA and the sports business classroom of it all, and let's dive into that.
So we're a year in to the new CBA now, and roughly, right? And we're now the full impact of the second apron is coming in. So Eric is someone who spends a lot of time on this stuff, studies it. One of the things Trevor and I talk about is unintended consequences. What are things that maybe have happened that they didn't intend? One of the things that we've talked about a lot is last year you had Boston, Milwaukee, Phoenix make a whole bunch of trades that they knew they weren't going to be able to make going forward. Let's pile on the money because going forward, these trades, either we couldn't make them or they would have been way harder to make with the full second apron rules. What are some of the things you think could be maybe the unintended consequences a year in with the full force of it all coming down? What are some of the other things you think we could see?
It's hard to say what's unintended and intended because I can only, I don't know what the NBA intended or didn't intend. I can say that there was some intention in minimizing free agency. So whether it's intended or not, or whether it was expected or not, I do think that free agency is, quote, hurt. And that we're going to see more players move team to team via trade, and precursors to that might be extensions. So instead of just letting a guy go to free agency, maybe you extend them, then maybe you trade them. We have these super heavy teams, like you mentioned, the ones who really invested. But I think one thing to note is that the way that trades work are different a little bit now. And so if you're a team that players are or fans are like, hey, let's combine these two guys to go get a more expensive guy, you can do that. But you're aggregating, and now we have a second apron hard cap now. So people associate me for whatever reason with the hard cap on Twitter and X or whatever it is. And there's just more ways to trigger that. And so I went through and had an apron tracker, and it was fun to sort of go through and see what are all these little apron triggers, but now we have more. So you aggregate, or if you take in people are like, okay, we can pad. Let's say we could take in, we're sending out a $20 million guy, and let's say we pad that by, let's call it $7 million. So you're bringing back 27 for a guy you're sending out that's 20. Well, now you have a hard cap at the first apron. So that doesn't work for a lot of teams. That's the one I think that is the sharp one. Aggregation, fine. How many teams are going to get deep into the tax where they're going to be at the second apron? I would say outside of the big spenders, most won't. But I think a lot of teams are on that border of okay, we're over the tax, but now we're kind of screwed because we can't make that kind of trade. So I do think trades are a little harder, and that yet they're also easier because they increased the padding. They made it easier to make trades, but not if you're at these upper levels. And I think that's, again, when we say unintended, intended, I think the intention is to make sure teams don't just keep spending. And so, and I think fans tend to say, oh, they want teams to be cheap. And I don't think that's the case either. They want people above the cap. They certainly above the floor. They want people above the cap, near the tax, maybe above the tax, but they don't want them certainly in the second apron. And it's sort of a rather not have teams in the first apron. And if everybody's sort of there, then the books should balance pretty well between, remember the players get half the money. So how do you make that work? It's by limiting spending. Otherwise, if you have the Warriors with no cap, spending whatever they want, like they have been doing, it throws everything out of whack. And then the players they're getting too much. And now everybody's taking a 10% pay cut just to appease the top 3 or 4, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Suns. Mm-hmm. It can throw things out of whack. So it's not a perfect system, but so far so good. And then the last thing is I just think we're seeing more extensions. That was the goal, more extensions. So we had more rookie scale extensions. I think we'll have more players. Like, I don't know that DeMar DeRozan hits free agency. He might, but if he's staying with Chicago, he's probably going to get that money in June, not in July. Just an opinion. We'll see. And maybe he wants to explore free agency. Maybe they don't reach the dollars he wants. But that, to me, that's my read on the CBA. More players are going to extend rather than just go to free agency.
Yeah, I think a couple reminders for folks here on things you mentioned. On the extension piece, players can extend veteran extensions through June 30th. So we hit a point where through June 30th, if they're on an expiring deal and they're extension eligible, because there are other rules beyond just being on an expiring deal, but if they're extension eligible, it's through June 30th. So that means all the way up through 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And Trevor and I have talked about this previously. That's when sometimes you get those reports of DeMar DeRozan Bulls agree to 3-year, $60 million contract, because that's usually how it's reported. And then we're like, is this an extension? Is this a free agency? Because technically free agency is open now, but he's not really a free agent till tomorrow and all that stuff. So those details will come out to 99.9% of the casual fans. It doesn't matter. DeMar DeRozan's back with the Bulls for 3 years, $60 million. But where it does matter is it matters to us later, because when will he be trade eligible if he extended? When will he be extension eligible again? Those kind of things matter. Those details come out later. The other thing I want to touch on is, and it's a really important point you made, but I just want to re-emphasize it just for everyone one more time. We put this cap on these teams spending way up here, but we took the teams that were down here and we're pushing them up. So we're trying to get everybody operating much closer together than it was before. In years past, we had the Pacers and the Spurs in recent history sitting $30, $40 million under the salary cap, and they were kind of used as a clearinghouse, or as people like to call it, the NBA money laundering of, let's shuttle contracts through there and those kind of things. Well, what happens now is when we get to the to the start of the regular season, those teams get in effect an artificial cap hold put in their books that brings them up to within range of the cap. So you can't be $30-40 million under the cap anymore and just eat contract after contract for people. So that's a new thing, because what they want is spend it in the offseason. We want you to spend it on players, go sign players to contracts if you need to get there. There's no reason to just sit on all this extra, because this is where you're at. So that's kind of the two-prong approach that they took to, let's try to push everybody closer to the middle here, get everybody paid a little bit more, and off we go with that. So I think those are the things we're going to see. I think there's a chance you're going to see some guys, whether they extend or get re-signed from these second apron teams, get a little bit more money than maybe they would have gotten otherwise. So if you have a $20 million player, you may sign them to a $30 million contract, as long as it doesn't trip into the bounds of, all right, this is now a really terrible contract. If you pay them a little bit more, that gives you a little bit more money to send out in a trade down the line if that's where you want to go. Because to your point, Eric, you can't say, all right, $20 million player, $10 million player, there's my $30 million in salary matching. That's no longer allowed. So you may make up for it in a way of, let's pay a little bit more. Now that's going to take some convincing to your ownership group, obviously, if you're the front office, because that $10 million, you're already over the second apron. That $10 million is probably coming in at a cost of 4 to 5 times that amount, if you can't get the guy traded later, or you trade him for equal money back. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to track as well.
Yeah, that's where you got to call ownership and get the money for Ricardo Rincon, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when I sell them back, I get to keep the difference. There it is.
You keep the profit. That's right.
So, I do think we'll see some of that quote money laundering, but as you said, it's an off-season tool, correct. So it has to happen before the season. There's a little bit like you can have a little flexibility going into the season, but it's not like it was before, which was like it's been going on forever. Well, I mean, in different forms where it used to be even a looser rule. And so guys would at the deadline, you'd have like 4 or 5 or even 8 or 10 players just traded for teams to get to the floor. All that's ancient history now. You don't have to do that.
That anymore. Was Sam Hinkie collecting second-round picks like they were Pokemon for a while there. It was just I got to have them all. And it was like JaVale McGee. I mean, they had the one year where for a little while they had more dead salary than real salary on their cap sheet because they had eaten all these contracts and waived all these guys. JaVale McGee was one of the biggest ones. That was like a $16 million contract.
Well, yeah, he had 2 years. So like that was like, usually it was like just expirings.
Yeah.
But no, they're like, no, we know we're going to be doing the same crap the next year. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, I was on NBA TV at that trade deadline when Roy Hibbert was traded to the Nuggets and the panel was like, talking about what it would mean for basketball and what it would look like. And I'm like, hey, hold on.
Yeah.
This is a floor deal. If he plays on the team, it's a miracle. But again, they changed the rule last CBA before this that made that a little more difficult. And now they've basically completely eradicated it or nearly eradicated, at least for the floor, chasing the floor. I do think that with the extensions, what's interesting is that the mid-level can now be used as a trade exception.
Yeah.
And so, and not for those upper apron teams, but the non-apron teams. So if you can use the mid-level or the biannual or the room, the mid-level is 3 flavors, any of the flavors of that. My thought is that, well, some teams aren't going to spend. If there's a weaker free agent class, they're just going to wait and use that as a trade exception. Mm-hmm. And you can argue that hurts free agency even more because there's less money being spent. And when you negotiate a deal, most of that line for an agent or for a team, the negotiation is usually around that mid-level, the big mid-level, which is, let's say it's 13, it's a little under, but let's call it 13 this year, right? So let's say you have a guy like the Isaiah Stewarts who got more, or the Okongwus, they all got, maybe they got a little more, or the Cole Anthony's got a little less, or maybe they got the exact number, or Neesmith. All these guys got numbers based on that mid-level, either above or slightly below. What happens if teams aren't giving out mid-levels? And now it's like, well, you can't go get that. So now maybe you're getting an $8 million deal or a $6 million deal because no one's even offering 13. So that's why back then, before the season in October, guys were like, okay, I'm going to extend because I don't want to risk that I get to free agency and I don't even have a $13 million offer. I'd rather take 11 now or 16 now and get a deal done rather than, experiment. So I don't know if those were unintended or unforeseen, but I do think they're consequences. And so I'm excited to see how it evolves. It's we're less than 2 months away. And most of this stuff is figured out by the draft. So we're getting there. We're going to, by 2 months from today, 85 to 90% of everything will be done. I mean, not two ways, not like your 15th guy or whatever.
Your camp signings.
Like you're probably your top 8 in your rotation for 28 teams will be locked in. And there'll be like a few like James Harden kind of things where it took a little bit longer, but most things are done. So we're going to have, I know Keith and I have to process all that, which is, a lion's share of the work that we do. I'm sure Trevor, you keep busy too, but you have to report all of it. But we got to dig into the numbers and the contracts, and that's going to take us all the way through, August, September to get that all cleaned up. So, I'm ready. We got a busy
this year
summer.
We won't have to do it from Las Vegas because Summer League won't have even started yet.
It's true.
They pushed it back. I remember there was I think it was it last year before? Maybe it was 2 years ago. I go to visit Keith. And we're talking about the show and everything. And I said, oh, did you get out or anything today? No, all these contracts just came in and all I've been doing is entering them and getting all this set up. And I'm like, yeah, that's a big part. Not only, we're on top of all the breaking news and rumors and all that kind of stuff. And Keith is crunching all the numbers, but at least you don't have to do that from a Vegas hotel room this year.
Yeah, at least a large chunk of it, hopefully. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a couple things. I thought something I've written extensively about. We're running our offseason previews on Spot Track, and a portion for each team is extension eligible players. And one of the things we touch on is guys who sign rookie scale extensions. And Eric, you rattled off a handful of guys. It used to be for years in the league, if a player's extension offer was less than the mid-level, very few guys would take it because they would just bet on themselves to I'll have a big year in my final year, and then whether it's in restricted free agency or my own team, they'll sign me to a number higher. We saw last year a bunch of guys take deals for the mid-level or less. Like Denny Avdias was one of the more creative ones where it starts high and it goes down year to year. So he'll actually make far less than the mid-level by the end if everything keeps going the way we think it's going to go. But then we even saw guys like Peyton Pritchard, Zeke Najee take way less than it was. They took half of the mid-level, amount or in that range. And that would have never been a thing in years past. And I think that is players and agents and teams reading, hey, there may not be a mid-level for you out there. So then you get squeezed into, do I just sign the qualifying offer? Do I just take whatever I can get? Because it sounds awesome to bet on yourself and get into restricted free agency. Then if offers don't come, almost all the leverage switches to the team side because it's, now we got you. Like anybody gives you anything reasonable, we'll just match and we'll go. So I think that's one thing. And then that tradable MLE, or using the MLE as a trade exception. The first front office executive I saw who touched on this directly, Monty McNair, talked about this in his end of season media session. He was asked a question about, hey, we all know the Malik Monk situation, but you're capped out. So you're kind of down to the MLE is how you can sign. And he said, actually, let's remember the MLE can be used as a trade exception this year. Starting, this year, we can do that if we want to do that. And that was just interesting to see. Clearly it's on the radar of anybody running a front office, but he was the first one to directly acknowledge that can be a thing.
Yeah. I think with the mid-level and just the cap, the last few years coming out of the pandemic, it's climbed, right? But it went up 10% a year for a bit. The mid-level, if back then, if it was 8 and you were taking less, you're talking about 6 million or whatever, sure. Right? Now if it's 13, or if last year, let's say it's in the 12 range, right? Now it's it's still 11 million a year. I'm taking a little bit less. It gets a little bit easier to everyone loves guys like Fred VanVleet, who, the story of him betting on himself and all that. Mm-hmm. Cool. And I love it. And if you have that success, beautiful. Unfortunately, there are probably 3 to 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 other guys who bet on themselves who didn't cash in the same way. So it is a risk. And that's something I work with a lot of agents. It's sort of a balance of projecting where the cap is going, where the money's going, where the team is going, what kind of money they're going to have. But, they may draft someone at your position. Your guy may get an injury. It could just be just a down year, and now you don't get paid. So if you're talking about the difference between 12 and 10, or if you're talking about the difference between 12 and 4, maybe 10 is worth doing, right? So it's always that, the opportunity cost, trying to figure out what is the right, what's a number you can live with, and then finding a number the team can live with, coming to a compromise. And it's not always going to be the case. And then I think we have the quickly situations where it's the team and the player are so far apart that you just don't go to extension, but then you have to work with the team to get you traded to where you want to go, to a team that's going to pay you. And I assume that that's going to work out for quickly. Does it work out for everybody who didn't take an extension, who should have? Does it work for Patrick Williams, who similar situation, could have extended with Cleveland, didn't, had a pretty decent injury? I don't know what's going to, maybe he ends up fine. Hopefully he does. I always root for people to succeed, but it's a dangerous business when it comes to turning down actual guaranteed money when it's this high, when it's 10 million a year, or if maybe Patrick Williams wants 20 million a year. Does he get that now? I don't know. I hope so for him. But if you turn down around 20, or let's say you turn around 15 or 18, is he getting that next year? I don't know. Or not next year, in 2 months, or through, yeah, because he's restricted. So it's coming. So difficult business to mess around with. There's no surety, though we have guaranteed contracts that becomes guaranteed. I'm more conservative when I advise people, I realize, than I thought I was, because make sure you get your money, because it's a strange world. It's real easy to just, I'm going to cash in, and then you tweak your hamstring and at the wrong time, or God forbid tear an Achilles or something like that, and suddenly you're in a different situation.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's
and I
risk
always
versus reward, right? That's what it all comes down to. There's plenty of guys who have had, there's that bravado of, I'm going to bet on myself, and then it doesn't work out, and they're left with far less than what they could have gotten. I mean, we all remember the Latrell Sprewells of the world. Of course, even going more recent, you look at like Dennis Schroeder, who maybe he had an offer, maybe he didn't, right? But he certainly didn't wind up getting what he was hoping to get. So you got to be careful with those kind of situations if you're in free agency, that you turn down money that's there.
Well, I mean, Dennis said he didn't get an offer and he didn't sign it, which is confusing. Right. He's like, I didn't sign that. Wait, what do you mean you didn't sign it?
Well, you can't sign it if you didn't get it.
Yeah. Seems like you had it. You didn't sign it. But then you didn't. It's like he was given an offer, from what I understand. It just wasn't, not as much was guaranteed as what was reported. So I think it was reported as 80, and I think 60 of it was guaranteed. I think the last year wasn't guaranteed. So there was a real offer, and he made up for some of it this last year. Last year he got a mid-level deal, but that's a good example there of misreading the market, and he didn't even get hurt, right? He just misread the market.
Speaking of not getting hurt, he's going through all this while then putting Instagram videos up of him doing tricks on skateboards. And these weren't just like, I'm ollieing the curb in front of my house. Like, he's doing full on like 360 jumps, like off ramps. And it's like, dude, what are you doing?
I believe that actually saved him. I think that saved him, because if you were watching, he turned his ankle so horrifically badly, like multiple times with the Lakers. And then somehow he'd be playing the next day. I'm like, my God, I would be out for months. Like, my year is over, and he stays in the game. I think it's all the skateboarding that allowed him to recover. He has Wolverine ankles at this point.
That's it. Maybe it does work. Maybe you just stumbled on a new training method to strengthen ankles. All right, so it wouldn't be. We wouldn't do right if we didn't sneak in a couple Lakers related things, having, Eric here. I know, Eric, it's, folks know you covered the Lakers for a long time. You're in LA. You obviously know the cap better than most people in the world. And that's saying a lot, because there's I know I still, if I'm really tripped up on something, you're one of the first people I go to ask a question. If I'm like, I'm not reading this right there. And it's, I'll tell people too, Eric is always very free with his time. Always been very, very helpful. It was funny. I always think back in the day when Twitter was there were a lot less of us. It was a lot more, we get into these 10 tweet back and forth, like deep CBA discussions, which are fun, which now, would probably not be a thing, because somebody would jump in there with some nonsense. But I always, appreciated that. And that's why, one of the things, and that's why, we respect, and that's why we want to get in a sports business classroom here in a minute. But Lakers, it just big picture. What do you think? We'll take the LeBron of it all out, because that's obviously the number one thing. In your opinion, what is the single biggest item the Lakers have to figure out this offseason outside of LeBron?
Well, that's obviously a pretty big one. Let's go with the assumption that LeBron is back, right? Sure. Because if he's not back, then it's a whole different conversation.
Absolutely.
Right. We're assuming that he's back. He's getting the max, whether it's, extension or new contract, but let's put him down at 49 something to 51, in that range. And then I'll assume they draft at 55 Bronny, just because. And obviously the big question is coach, right? So there's two issues. We're assuming LeBron's back. The issue is coach, and then the issue is roster. So is the answer to what went wrong for the Lakers, roster based or was it coaching based? And it's probably both. So what can they fix by upgrading the coach? Darvin was probably one of the nicest guys I've ever been around as far as a coach. There were criticisms of various things about what he did as a coach, right or wrong. I don't know. I think that the team could be better with who they are already, just with a little bit of better coaching in terms of in-game strategy, adjustments, rotations, choices, etc. So getting the right coach, I wrote that JJ Redick makes sense from a lot of levels, except he has no real experience. Certainly politically, if you're going LeBron, you go full LeBron. And if LeBron wants JJ, and he'll distance himself. He's going to say, oh, I have nothing to do with this. LeBron. Yep. He'll say, I'm not pushing for anything. LeBron probably gets more coaches fired than hired because there is some, for the Lakers, you want to do what LeBron wants, but you also have to, LeBron wanted Russell Westbrook, and that wasn't the right choice. So it's sort of deciding what is right for LeBron, what is right for the organization, and then protecting LeBron from himself a little bit because whatever, like if you wanted Russ, that wasn't the right thing. The other bigger issue to resolve is the D'Angelo Russell option, which is just around 19 million, rounding it. Now, what will happen, in my opinion, is Russell, through his agent, will look around the league in June, negotiate in June. All that is technically not legal, but it is how the NBA operates. So if he's opting out, it's because his agent has already negotiated a deal with Orlando that has the cap room, with San Antonio. I can't see him going to Philly, but they have the money if things don't work out. I can't see them going to D'Lo, but whatever. I'm trying to, you go down the list. It's not a long list. Like the Thunder don't need him. Like the Hornets are rebuilding. You just the whole list. Toronto, I guess, they have Quickly. They probably pay Quickly. Why are you paying D'Lo? You could argue they need more shooting. Yes, they do. Orlando clearly needs more shooting. You can argue D'Lo is a very good shooter. You can also argue his shooting's iffy in the playoffs, and the Magic want to win in the playoffs. But yeah, whatever. We'll let the teams make the choices they make. But I think that decision will come down. Now, let's say he's got the offer. It's more money than the Lakers are willing to pay him. He's gone. They now have about 19 off their books. Opens up probably the full mid-level for them to spend. But if D'Lo is back, now is he back because he opted in, or is he back because they renegotiated a deal, gave him a new contract? The main issue is they're pretty well spent. I mean, if you're paying D'Lo, and if you want to keep Taurean Prince, who I thought was good as a bench player, weak as a starter, and you pay him the most you can, which is about 5.5, they're right there. They're basically in apron territory, over the first apron, under the second barely, and so they're limited. They may not even have room to pay the taxpayer mid-level, which is about $5 million, especially if they're going to keep, for instance, Max Christie, if you want to bring him back, which I would argue that he should have been playing the whole year instead of some of these players who weren't as, he's a young guy. Well, Christian Brown last year, what was it? Ben Shepherd's doing stuff for the Pacers. Just because someone's young doesn't mean you shouldn't play them, and some coaches just default to they're not ready yet, right? So Austin was young and he played, but that's because they had no other choice and he killed it. But in most cases, doesn't happen. So they can start trading, and then it's like, do you trade D'Lo, Rui? Probably don't want to trade Austin Reeves. Vincent, Vanderbilt? Those are the bigger contracts. But the main issue there is once you start aggregating, then you have a second apron hard cap, or once you start trying to take more in than you take back, you have a first apron hard cap. So I do think chasing a Donovan Mitchell is in their cards for them to chase it. I don't know that the owner is willing to do that, though. So, like in Cleveland, you want to help LeBron maybe win another title by giving him your star player who's demanding out, and you're going to send him to the Lakers? I find that a little bit hard to fathom. So, but I think D'Lo is the hinge point, and with his option in or out.
There it is.
Is there
Trevor,
a scenario where he could, you could see him opting in and then facilitating a trade that way to get to where he wants to go? If there's an environment that he sees will be more welcoming to him, or whatever terminology, maybe offer him some new opportunities if he were able to opt into that $18.7-ish million and then get traded that way. We saw Montrezl Harrell do that a few years ago.
Sure. I mean, if he opts in, it could be a few things. One, there's no other money that was given to him, and the Lakers aren't offering him enough. Two, once he opts in, he has no say where he goes. You could argue that he tries to say, I'm not going to stay with you if you trade me. I don't think D'Angelo Russell has the power like a Donovan Mitchell would to say, I'm not going to stay there. He needs to get paid from whatever team is willing to use his rights to pay him. So if he's traded, he can extend. There's limits on the extension. Maybe he has to wait 6 months, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe an extension fits within extend and trade. I think a team like the Nets might make sense. They need a point guard. You start looking at teams that need point guards. We'd have to go through the entire list. Who needs a point guard who can shoot really well, who may not be the best playoff performer, who's not the best defender? And they have a history with him, good and bad. It ended poorly, but at the same time, he was good for them. And I know they tried to trade for him this last year, and when it didn't work out, they went with Dennis. So I don't think the Lakers want Dennis back necessarily. But there are multi-team trades. That's what Bleacher likes me to write the most, of these multi-team trade concepts. They love that. So I think keeping him is an option. Maybe a different coach says I can do more. I would argue that you're fundamentally flawed in that if you have D'Lo and Austin trying to guard a backcourt with two guys you have to guard, or bigger guys, like in the case of the Nuggets where they're switching Porter, or getting switches where Porter's on, or you're having to cover even Gordon in the post. Gordon doesn't have a jump shot necessarily, but and then you have Rui, who is probably not great at guarding perimeter players. He's pretty well suited as a power forward who switches onto Jokic, or maybe guards Jokic as the primary. But when you have him out on the perimeter, the shot they lost to Jamal Murray was Rui's had responsibility to step in. He doesn't have that kind of perimeter awareness. So is that a thing that can be coached up? Or is that, like you say, he can't be coached up and he needs to change, or someone needs to change? So I think they need more size, not less. So getting rid of Rui to go smaller doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I think they're in a difficult spot. I think there's always ways through it. Maybe a Vanderbilt being healthy changes things, but then teams don't have to guard him. But maybe you have a good coach who can figure out how to use him in a way similarly to Gordon. Although Gordon's a better finisher, Vanderbilt's hands around the rim are not great. So, yeah, it's a flawed situation. I don't know that there's an easy solution, but I also think for the haters or the naysayers, yeah, I mean, there is a solution. There's a path where the Lakers are the best team next year. Do I think they get to that? I wouldn't put my money on it, but I think it's within the realm of at least reasonable possibility.
All right. Well, Trevor, you got a few things you can pull there, especially that LeBron is taking the max part, because that seems to be a whole topic of discussion.
Right, and we talked about that yesterday a little bit.
But Eric, one of the real reasons we want to have you on was talk about Sports Business Classroom. So I'll tell you, I hadn't had a chance to tell you yet. When we do our Friday live shows, a pretty regular question Trevor and I get asked is, how do you guys learn about this stuff? How did you learn the salary cap? How do you get to the point where you know this much stuff? And we go through, read the CBA, read the FAQ, read a lot of other things. But one of the things we always talk about, if you're able, we mentioned Sports Business Classroom. So for those who may not know what Sports Business Classroom is and when it is, give everybody a little bit of a rundown on what it is, what they can expect, when it is, and things like that.
Sure. It's in Las Vegas, part of the Summer League program. So you go to Summer League, you're actually in the gym, you're watching games at night or in the evenings, but during the day, you're actually in the bowels of the arena and you're listening to Jerry West talk. I mean, no promises yet as far as this. We haven't announced our speakers yet because that's always, something we want to share later in the process. But we have Hall of Fame people like J.A. Donde and Howard Beck. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but probably should be eventually. On the media and broadcast side, we have myself and Bobby Marks teaching the salary cap, which is like, come on. I mean, I feel like that's, if you want to learn and you want to learn from somebody, we're pretty good people to learn from. You would like to think.
That's pretty
video
humble.
and analytics. Scouting video and analytics.
The two best people to learn from. Let's just we'll say what you don't want to say.
The top. The top.
Yeah, two of the best people to learn from.
Sure. My wife always gets on me for being too humble, but it is what it is. I try not to. But the thing is like I have a very like I know what I don't know, and with the salary cap, anyone claiming they know everything is just a fool, because like it is not knowable, because the league and the NBPA could literally change the rule at a dime if they agree on something, like they did with the Nays contract back in a trade with the Rockets situation. So it's always keeps you on your toes. And then we have scouting video and analytics. You learn analytics from Seth Partnow, and we have people like Steve Jones Jr. and others who are working with teams in scouting and video, and you're learning from them. So I know that you're probably feeding into more of the salary cap nerds, and I say that with affection, being that that's what I would like to think the both of us are. Trevor, I don't know where you fit on the salary cap nerd spectrum. You're maybe a associated or adjacent.
I think adjacent is a pretty good word. I can hold my own in most cap conversations and get by just fine. But I'm not at your guys. I have not leveled up to Keith, to Eric, to any of these guys. And you guys watch the show. You guys know that.
Well, I've been involved with the program since 2016. It's gotten better every year. We're near sold out. We had 20 spots about a week ago. We're down to about 10. It might be 11 or 12. So there's just not a lot of room. It's going to sell out. It's just a matter of time. The main goal for me, and I think for the program, is to help people not just learn, but to find a way to do this as a job. Like, how do you break into the industry? Mm-hmm. So that there's only 30 teams. There's only 30, at most, if a team has 2 or 3 cap people, maybe it's 30 to 90 jobs, which is a lot, but it's not a ton given the thousands of people who are interested in this sort of thing. But like, where are the other opportunities? There's opportunities in media. There's opportunities working with agents, and agents need help. They don't, believe me, I help a lot of agents pass the exam, and a lot of them need a lot of help, and they just don't know the rules. They don't know the landscape of the cap and like who has money for their clients. So yeah, the main goal is to try to help people learn, give them opportunities to succeed in this. It's not a fantasy camp. You're not there just to be around players and be around executives. You're there to actually learn, to work. We have a massive mock trade deadline, which I'm roping in Keith to help me parse through. And it's really a wonderful, it's a rare opportunity. I really get to know people. I have people I keep in touch with daily that have done the program for years ago, who I'm still keeping in touch with, helping them in their careers, helping people get jobs. We got GMs of G League teams and cap guys and all kinds of wonderful people who are having great success in, shoe companies and media companies. Like at NBA is like one of our former students is like the handle. So it's a wonderful opportunity. I recommend if you're interested, reach out to me or just go to sportsbusinessclassroom.com and look at the program, look at the pricing. It's an investment in yourself. It's not a fantasy camp. It's for somebody who's serious about learning this, and you get access to me and Bobby if you want to know the cap. So I'm accessible. You reach out to me, we'll talk. You want to do tutoring, we'll do tutoring. We'll figure it out. So, but yeah, I'm excited about the program, and it's coming up. It's in July. Starts on July 14th.
Eric, Keith had to jump out, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, probably on, I would say Twitter, X, although a little bit less than it used to be, at Eric Pincus, ERICPINCUS. I'll also say that my Gmail is eric.pincus@gmail.com. It's pretty easy. Eric, ERIC, Pincus, PINCUS. If you're listening, if you're watching the program, you should be able to see my name right there to the left of my face. Is it I guess the right to my, I don't know. From where I'm looking, it's the left. From where I'm stage left, stage right. I don't know. But yeah, eric.pincus@gmail.com. And I'll answer questions, help you understand, I'm happy to get on like a call and just sort of talk it through. Because some people it's right for you, it's perfect, it's exactly what you want. Some people it's not, right? Like I've had some people I'm like, great, you're a fan of the sport, you have no interest in doing this professionally, you have no interest in really knowing this, you just want to be around it. That's not really what we're here for. We're here for people to learn the program, learn what jobs are out there, what is available in the industry. How do you get from just being a fan of the game to being somebody who's part of the game? And what does that mean? Where are those opportunities? Because they're varied, and it's not just with a team, although we can certainly help make that happen as well. We've revamped the curriculum a bit. It's a little bit fresher, but it's the same concept of making sure people understand the industry, the breadth of the industry, and figure out how they can get into it, be it on the salary cap side or on the scouting video analytics or media and broadcast.
It's definitely well worth your time. Those of you guys who I know we get a lot of crossover folks from Lakers Nation over here. You guys know Ron Gutterman. He went through the program. He speaks incredibly highly of it and how great it was. And you mentioned that you still talk to people from the program. He talks about that all the time, about how many people that are from SBC that he still is in touch with, still talks to today. So it's a phenomenal thing. So again, those of you guys who are interested in it, make sure you guys reach out to Eric and go check it out. Eric, man, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a treat to have you come on and talk basketball with us.
Absolutely, Trevor. I enjoy the show. Keith, I know you're maybe you'll hear this later. Thank you for all the support. And I'm looking forward to seeing this offseason. We got 2 months. By 2 months from now, it'll all be mostly settled. So I'm curious. And for your Knicks, good luck.
I'm going to get known as the Knicks guy now. Yeah, I hope they can make it. Really, it's just someone please beat Keith's Celtics. Come on. I need somebody to knock them out already. We'll see. I think it's going to take, I think, the West finalists to knock them out.
I'll say that, like, my fandom has been beaten out of me in the sense of I root for people. Like Buddy Scott took SBC, did really well, was a standout student. He met Mike Zarin, who's one of the top executives on the basketball side of the Celtics. Met Mike Zarin, had an opportunity to work there, I guess through maybe it was an internship or a medium level job. And eventually they needed a cap person and they gave it to Buddy. So now I got to root for Buddy. And, growing up in LA, it's a little hard, but, over time, you're like, I want Buddy to succeed. So does that mean I want the Celtics to succeed? It's sort of, so my team allegiances have been destroyed for the most part. Now I root for friends and people I support, people I like, and that. So it is what it is. If the Celtics, if they win, I'll be happy for Buddy.
Well, there you go. And that's the way I tend to look at it too. If the Celtics were to win, I'll plug my nose and I'll be happy for Keith. And I'll look at it that way. But I'm still rooting for their downfall. Eric, though, this was great. I do appreciate all your time coming on here, man. As always, you're phenomenal, and we'll have to have you on again real soon.
All right, thanks, Trevor. Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks everybody. Till next time. See ya, and stay safe.